Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this session once again. This is Rashmi from Great HR and today's moderator of this session. Once again, as you all know, today is our 32nd Ask the Expert webinar Parichay, and the topic for today is reinventing talent strategies for future workforce. So before I dive into the topic, let's do a little housekeeping on how the session goes. So the session is divided into two parts. In the first part, we will be having a discussion with our expert for today's session on the current topic, which is then followed by the audience Q&A. So I can say the audience Q&A is where time is all yours, dear participants, because that's when you can start putting across all your questions in the Q&A option of Zoom control panel, and we will be happy to take it up and get the answers from our expert. All right. So without any further delay, let's start this session. So to tell you more about our today's topic, with COVID-19 wreaking havoc across the countries, there has been a paradigm shift in people's lives, right? Not just personally, but also professionally. Companies are diligently working towards reforming workforce strategies along with workplace dynamics to adapt to the new normal. As the skills gap widens and competition for top talent intensifies, companies must reassess their recruiting habits and strategies. Unsurprisingly, the post-pandemic world is unlike what we have known in the past. Many businesses struggle to adjust to what's known as new norms due to the pandemic's impact. In a world that is ever evolving, what can companies do to retain and develop their talent to fight back any challenge? What are the most effective talent strategies? So in the next 1 hour, we are going to discuss all of this in length with our today's expert, Ms. Megha Gupta, Director, Human Resources, Fiserv, and understand talent strategies for future workforce in detail. But before that, let me tell you more about Ms. Megha Gupta, our today's expert. So Ms. Megha Gupta is currently, like I said, Director, Human Resource. She has 17 plus years of experience across Fortune 500 companies and worked for organizations in financial technology, US-based IT services, telecom, and creative sector. Her areas of expertise include strategic business partnership, organizational development, leadership development, talent management, performance management, diversity and inclusion, compliance, and employee engagement. She has worked extensively with teams across US, Europe, APAC, and India. She has partnered with business leaders on capability building to meet future technology requirements, managed merger and acquisition, led organization design for large business, and reorganized to define the right structure, span of control, and focus on organization priorities. She has also worked on HR for HR, leading the vision of scaling up the entire team to a strategic HR partner team and focusing on capability building to enable them through this change. She has also been a recipient of several leadership awards. So Megha, we are delighted to have you here in the session. Welcome once again.
Thank you so much. It's definitely my pleasure to be back here.
All right. So let's head towards our first round of the discussion today. So Megha, I have a couple of questions related to our today's topic. So we are looking forward to get some great insights from you on this. So my first question is, let's start with the basic, if I have to tell you. So the basic question is, how has the pandemic impacted recruitment strategies given the new landscape of work?
Yeah. So Rashmi, let me step back, because, we have to understand how, the overall environment and the landscape has really changed. Now think about, earlier from a recruitment standpoint, when you were hiring, most of the ask that a leader would have would be that, I need a person in, Bangalore, I need a person based out of Pune because most of the team is based out of Pune. But today with pandemic, I think the most important thing that has fundamentally changed is the concept of the workplace itself, because many organizations have either gone to a hybrid model or completely remote model. There are very few organizations who have gone back to a 5-day work week kind of environment back after the pandemic. Now, because of that, what really happened is the fundamental belief of having all conversations in person as a recruitment. So that really changed the mindset of saying, oh, everything from a process can happen virtually, rather than thinking about, oh, we need to have somebody in the office and then only we will probably have the process. So which obviously bring in a lot of automation into multiple places of how you do the talent, the identification process from a selection standpoint. The second piece around who you hire and where you hire, I think that itself is fundamentally been shaken, because who you hire has changed to, or hire the talent which is more suitable for the role, which is more future ready. Because what pandemic has also done is now people are not only hiring for today, because today is fine, but what pandemic has taught businesses is, today is also very, very uncertain, because tomorrow another pandemic that hits in, your entire business model can be, completely be thrown away. Imagine what has happened to Uber, imagine what has happened to Airbnb, imagine the hotel and the retail industry still struggling because suddenly the online marketplace has come in, and they're really fighting to get back to the revenue, and fighting to identify how can they get back to the market share which was pre-pandemic, because some of those market has fundamentally been shaken and uprooted to say that what should be our business, hardcore business. So business are constantly hiring, not for today but for a skill that can be hired for tomorrow. Which means if you are a technologist, Java, great, but are you also a guy who would future think about the next skill that's going to be required for the organization? Are you a talent who's ready to be reskilled in the organization? I think that's a very hardcore skill that organizations have started to think about. So who should you hire has become from today to the need of the tomorrow, and it has become immediate as well. Now, where you hire from a talent has also become a question, because earlier you were hired in, oh, we have a large team in Chennai, let's hire somebody in Chennai, to saying, oh, we don't care where you are, till the time you can come 2 days to any of our office premises, or 3 days. I think we are absolutely fundamentally okay for you to come, because we are hybrid. Till the time you can manage the teams hybridly, till the time you can collaborate in a flexible environment, I think that has suddenly opened up from a talent strategy. Imagine earlier you were only hiring talent from where you had offices, to suddenly that has opened up a realm of saying, oh, we can hire from anywhere, till the time people are open to still come to office 2 days, 3 days a week. So the concept of metros have gone back to saying, hire from anywhere. So suddenly a pool of talent have increased, because I may tomorrow hire somebody from Jaipur who's willing to come 3 days to Gurgaon and work. That's absolutely possible now. So possibilities of hiring and funneling up where the talent is available is suddenly open up with the market that you can imagine. Now, one more angle if I have to add to it, think about, because of remote job, can you now preempt and saying that some of the jobs I can reserve for gender diverse or weakened society, where you haven't seen so much of talent being attracted earlier, because now with the remote jobs, that's a biggest possibility that you can hire. So your talent strategy can also become a lot more diverse and inclusion, which earlier used to struggle because you won't have enough candidate, because now you're taking away where the talent needs to be. Can talent be hired in a midnight shift, because you're obviously providing a permanent remote job, so you take away a lot of security angle from the job itself. So you can now be a lot more inclusive talent strategies than what it was pre-pandemic. So I think long answer, Rashmi, but I see complete shaking up about how you hire. So automation plays a very big role. Who you hire, which is talent from today, moves to talent to tomorrow, and where you hire has suddenly become work anywhere. Till the time you are flexible, we are very happy to hire you.
Absolutely, Megha. I think with this new shift, the WH forms of HR has been changed, is what I can say now. Right. So, Megha, in that case, my next question is how to build a successful talent acquisition strategy?
Yeah. See, it's a very good question and a tricky one as well, because earlier, when I started my career, till the time you were able to hire people, I think everything was fine. So what we used to measure was how many open positions, how many we hired. That's it. And then the next level of questions started to coming in. When are you filling the position? Which means the time to fill ratio suddenly became an important factor. And from there, it moved into, okay, we are able to hire people probably in 45 days or 60 days, but how many offer drop are happening? So, offer drop ratio started to come in. And then suddenly, some of these metrics started to become a lot more complex around not just the offer drop ratio, but to saying what comp up, on an average that we are hiring. What is the pool of talent where we're hiring from? Where are we losing the talent? Should we look at the comparator basket? So there's so much complexity around data has come in, when you hire. So I think the first thing that any recruiter, or a HR person should think about a talent acquisition strategy is put your metrics in place, because it's not just about a job requisition. We come in and a recruiter has to fill that position. But I think it's very important in an age, data is the king, right? So if you're able to provide and slice and dice your data into a meaningful manner, what you can go back and talk to the leadership will be a very different talent acquisition strategy. Now, let me give you an example on this, right? How many times, when a position comes in, or, it's a start of the year, a talent acquisition goes to the leadership team and says that last year you hired X number of people from X number of location, from X number of staff. These many people attracted, these many people are there. But hey, by the way, I also figured out that, with the data, when you hire from X organization, from X location, the success rate is X percentage to stay in the organization with somebody who we hired with that. Nobody talks like that, because it can be a game changing of how you strategize to hire, where you hire from, what kind of a skill that you hire for. Or even questioning, last year we suddenly had started, in demand the newer skills. We haven't started thinking, should we start to thinking today because it takes the most amount of hiring? We don't talk like that. What we talk is, oh, business, tell us what you want to hire, we will hire for you. And then we think about what matrices should we go back and represent to the leadership, because obviously we are answerable, we are spending costs for the organization, we are accountable for the job that we do. We have to start flipping the game for the business to say, hey, we are on the driver's seat, and we own this function, and we know this is what you should be doing if you have to fill up 1,000 position, 2,000 position, 3,000 position, or 10,000 position for tomorrow. I think we have to up our game ourselves through data analytics, predictive, multiple ways of, slicing and dicing the data. So I think that's the first talent strategy that I would say, that, don't just think about 1,000 positions, but think about multiple way that your previous data can really help you, fill those future positions for tomorrow. The second, talent, strategy piece that, I would definitely talk to any recruitment person, talk about, one is obviously the business aspect of it. Okay, how are we hiring and stuff? But think about people aspect, who you hiring. The employer branding or the experience piece of a candidate is the most important piece when you hire. If you don't give them the right experience when you're hiring them, half of your brand value that the candidate experiences suddenly goes away. And that's why also you see a lot of offer dropout ratio, because obviously the market or not, it's a market of the war of the talent itself. So the second important piece that any talent acquisition person should put into their strategy or a KRA is not just hire 1,000 people in the same example, but what experience are you going to provide to the candidate when you're hiring? Now, whether it's before you're interviewing, what should you say, how should you position the role to the candidate, to every single interview, how well you are engaging, how can you keep them warm during the process, to obviously when the offer rollout happens, what should be the right level of conversation, how you are keeping them engaged to the notice period, to obviously the onboarding experience. So it's an art, I would say, rather than just doing your job, to ensuring that candidates have the right information at the right time, and you're ensuring you understand well, because you are the custodian of the brand, to the candidate, because that's the only person they're interacting with from a brand standpoint. So I think that's very important that you put that entire cycle of how things are happening and imagine yourself and put yourself in those shoes when you're hiring those candidates. So I think that's a very, very important piece. The third piece, I think it's far time now that, you know, some of the external branding of the talent comes back to the talent acquisition rather than staying with the branding and the comms team. Because I feel talent today is attracted not just by because you are X revenue or because you're big, but comes from what are the talent practices that we run. And that will only happen when, as a acquisition or as an HR, we start positioning our brand through the talent value and the culture that we bring in. So there has to be enough effort put in, you know, to an external outreach through social media, through multiple other channels, to say who are we as a culture, who are we, what are the kind of roles that we hire for, rather than just thinking, oh, we are this is the kind of business that we do, these are the markets that we do, which everybody can find you on internet. But, you know, talk different around, you know, why should people join you from a culture, what's the value that you bring in from the culture, how will their career grow, how people's internally career grow, what is the experience that people get in the organization. I think branding is a very, very important piece today, and talent branding is the most important piece why people want to join an organization rather than just saying that, oh, we give attractive compensation or our brand is XYZ. So that's the third piece. The fourth piece, you know, again, I'll come to the aspect of the diversity inclusion piece, because I think it's very important, and, you know, it has to be a focused intervention as part of the recruitment rather than it happens by luck. Nothing happens by luck. Trust me, you know, you have to put a conscious effort in your talent strategy to say that, you know, who you are today and as an organization, who you want to become in 2025, and how will acquisition play a role in ensuring that you know, achieve your D&I agenda by 2025, say, for example. So I think it's very important that you cautiously put those targets and keep the leadership accountable. Please remember, when you put such a talent acquisition strategy, it's not just your job to fulfill it. It is a leadership commitment that you're having around, you know, the DIE agenda. And that will only happen when you put it and have a commitment from the leadership team to able to achieve for the organization. So I think it's very, very important to put it rather than, you know, assuming that a leadership will take care and hire diverse workforce, or, you know, if you don't give resume which is at least 50-50 on a gender diversity, how would you expect they will shortlist a woman candidate? Or how do you expect the PWD candidates will be higher? How do you expect a diverse workforce of multi-generation, multi-work age, multi-thought process will get hired? So you have to put it as part of the process.
Certainly, Megha. I think you have brought it up in a very beautiful manner. So this actually leads to my next question. If these are the strategies, then how about the key components? So basically, my question is, what are the key components of a winning talent strategy?
I think it's obviously extension of the last question. So I'll say, you know, it's as simple as put the expectations very clear for what you are going to do as a team. Whether it's offer, as I said, you know, offer drop, you know, probably we'll achieve as a team to say we will only have 20% offer drop, which means then you have to step back and say, why does the offer drop happen? What are we missing? Is it a brand value? Then you focus on the brand value, how you create a brand value. Is it because we probably from the market hire from a lesser compa, we give lesser compa when we hire, but internally people grow? You know, then you have to reflect back that, is it the right compensation range that I'm hiring at? Or, you know, is it because, you know, the skills that we are hiring are particularly niche in the market, so we may not be the market player in that skill? Then it's a very different conversation to have to the leadership to say, how do we position this role? You know, we need to position this role very differently. So, you know, every single target that you put in, have a backstory to say why this is not happening, how will we achieve. Identify those, you know, granular objects, you know, when you put it, because when you will put it, it may be a very high level objective, but, you know, when you know, go into the subset of every single thing, you will have a deeper interventions for everything that you put into the talent acquisition. So put high level objectives, but also go granular in detail to say, how will you achieve this? What is that we are missing today that will help us achieve to obviously further up from a, you know, acquisition talent acquisition strategy. The second piece, you know, if I have to call out, would be probably around what's the value proposition that, this team is going to provide for the organization. Now, you can't, think that TA is an engine who just manufactures talent, right? You have to think about the value proposition. Now, let me explain you what I'm trying to say. Now, one way of hiring talent strategy is obviously hiring from outside. We all know that. But how many times we think about, oh, if we hire 100 roles today from outside, how many people can I internally fill a senior leadership role? Now, put that, perspective and say the benefit, you're giving people mobility, through multiple roles, which means learning happens. People get promoted internally, which means faster growth for people and obviously lesser cost for the organization. When you provide internal mobility, the longevity of people spending time in the organization is obviously a lot more. So, that's the value. Then you start talking it from a life cycle of an associate. So try to think, okay, if today we hire 100 roles from outside, from tomorrow we start thinking, say 40% role should be hired internally, which is through a lateral movement or through a promotion or multiple things. And then we probably start hiring somebody below from outside. So, which provides a value to the organization and the internal people as well. So just don't think a source of hiring is outside, but what are the multiple sources that you do? Third source, we hire a lot of new age skills. Can we create a program to hire freshers or maybe 1-2 years of experience who join, we train them, and that's a complete 2-year program charter for, X amount of skills. Now that's the value that you're bringing to the organization, because it's suddenly upping the game to saying, oh, we are going to invest. It's the program that we will create. People will go through that, learn through that program, and this will in turn provide people newer skills. So you'll suddenly up your game in terms of larger talent pool in the same skill that which was earlier a niche skill. And then obviously it would be less of cost because you're not hiring already trained people, but you're investing in, that particular skill to be trained in the organization. So imagine what's the value chain that you've created to look much longer beyond just saying, oh, this skill is not available, I'm not able to hire, the time to fill is 6 months. And you suddenly say, oh, if the time to fill of this position is anyway 6 months, why don't you hire somebody at a junior skill, spend 6 months, the same 6 months in training with a person. Now you suddenly, because this person is suddenly in the new skill, he will obviously be more interested to spend 3 to 4 years in the organization, because the person is learning, and you obviously have reduced the cost. Same objective, but in a different fashion. So put those value proposition to the organization. And again, data would be a great source to, and I'm again coming to that fact, data will help you in all of this. If you have a good data person in the team, or you can create multiple analytics tool in the market that's available, or through your technology team, whatever you can leverage the right set of data, because that will give you magic to do what you can create in the talent strategy. So I think these would be my couple of responses, Rashmi.
Wonderful, wonderful, Megha. So since we are already talking about data and the metrics and all of that, you in fact sometime back mentioned about the metrics of offer and drop ratio, right? So in the similar lines, can you please share some insights on retention aspects of the workforce? As in, what are some of the best talent retention strategies that HR leaders can adopt today?
Yeah, I think that's a tricky one, Rashmi. A lot of time we think, oh, we are a great brand, uh, we belong large organization, why would people not come and stay with us? Now that's a very, probably 15 years ago that was right, but today, trust me, with what pandemic has happened, there's even a study, and I'm forgetting, I think it was by Forbes or somebody, but it said 40% of the people after pandemic are prioritizing their health and mental well-being over a great job or a great pay package. Now that's a fundamental shift in the mindset of the people that has happened, because they've seen that life is so unpredictable. Suddenly something happens, and you lose somebody who was so near and dear to you. So if people have started to prioritize their mental and the physical well-being so much, why would you not as an organization also do that? Which means, and we have heard a lot of great practice in the pandemic of saying Friday after 5 no meetings, to multiple other, great practices in the market that have started to come up, because, it's the talent who's demanding that, my well-being is also a responsibility of the organization. So organizations have to invest in the mental and the physical well-being, which is through multiple aspects, which also means that, is your culture aligned to it? People will not join you. If you are a great brand, you provide me a great good package, but you're not willing to give me a good cultures, people are not going to join that organization. So you have to invest in the right culture, which is collaborative, which is innovative, which provides you an environment where you can openly talk and openly discuss and, bring your own self. And I'm going to call it out because a lot of time organizations want to clone leaders, but the successful organizations are the organizations where people can be themselves. And I think it's very important that organizations focus on the right behaviors and the right culture in the organization. So I think it's a very big aspect of having the healthy and the right work environment for people. The third, piece that I'll, definitely talk about, that I've always heard from people, they don't feel recognized. How many times we think, oh, I did such a great work, I like spend midnight oil, and maybe just one pat on the back. Or, I think today every organization have multiple recognition platforms or awards or multiple things. But, and there was a study by Great Place to Work which said that, even today, 79% of the workforce feel that they're not recognized enough. Imagine, in spite of so many recognition tools, so much happening, which means managers are definitely not doing it enough. And we need to encourage that behavior every day out, and not wait for annual recognitions and awards and multiple things, but do it very constantly and very regularly to the people to give those recognition on ground. The last piece, if I have to really talk about, is how do you create that relationship with the manager? And man, I'm going to say that because 90%, and there is another study which says 90% of the people leave because of the manager. So if you have to retain the people, you have to invest in the people management skill. Whether it's about how do you treat people remotely, how do you be inclusive over a remote setup, how does manager goes beyond the work life, which means, do I know Rashmi on what's her work style, rather than just knowing Rashmi that she may be great in anchoring or moderating or communication skills, but how do I know Rashmi beyond that? What are her aspirations? What does she want to do in her career? What does she feel when we do a something immediately? Does she like email communication? Does she like call? And can I as a manager really start adopting that? If I know that Rashmi doesn't like emails, I probably pick up a call and give her a bad message rather than giving it over an email, because that may completely take away her mental peace of mind to say, oh, email, that means, oh my god, my red alert signals have gone, because that's who Rashmi is as an individual. I think a lot of time managers behave like robots, which is, oh, this is the work assigned, why don't you do it, what went wrong? We all are humans and we all are dealing with humans. So I think we have to start behaving like humans a lot more, like what we like to be treated like, we should treat others as well. So I think, have the people managers or invest in the people manager who can build that healthy relationship with the people.
Absolutely. I think you have put it across in a very brilliant way, Megha. Especially the part like it's all about acceptance, accept the person who he is, right? Absolutely. Thank you so much for bringing that up here. So I'll go to the next question, Megha. My next question is, what is the link between good L&D strategies and higher talent retention rates? What ties them together so closely?
So let me go back to Rashmi on a data point. Okay, in my last organization, I was doing a project on predictive attrition, which means data will actually give you what are the exact 10 people who are going to leave in the next 6 months. And when I was doing that project with an internal IT team member, we were putting multiple data set, and there was one very interesting piece that we found, that it's sometimes not the promotion and the compensation which triggers the attrition in the people's mind, but actually the number of people who went through learning, any kind of learning intervention in the organization, vis-a-vis people who did not went through any learning program in the last 2 years, actually attracted a lot more than people who actually went through learning. So it was such an interesting aspect to say that if you don't provide any learning intervention to an associate, the probability of leaving of that associate is almost 2x to 3x than the person who has you have invested through a learning intervention. And it can be functional or behavior, it doesn't matter, by the way. So that's the importance, I would say. How are you skilling and upskilling people in the organization is a very critical aspect. A lot of time we think, oh, organization is not doing, they will first go and reduce the LNOD budget. But actually they should do reverse. They should upskill people so that they started to see the productivity go higher rather than cutting the L&D cost. But we actually do the opposite in the market, right? So it should be actually be the other way, that LNOD team should be bought in and say that, hey, your target is now that you have to upskill people and ensure that the productivity become 2x because we are undergoing a cost pressure or recession is coming or whatever that's happening in the market, right? So it should be actually be saying, the target is to up the productivity by changing people's behavior or, upskilling them from a skilling standpoint. So I think that's how we should up our game when we have to think about a good L&D practice from a retention standpoint. The second piece, I always believe, a lot of time, what we fail to do, we may have multiple interventions. We talk to the leadership team, we talk within the HR group, and we roll out, hope people manager quick invite chala gaya, aapko ye karna hai. We never spend time to say how can we become very transparent and open that, hey, when you join an organization, these are the multiple learning platforms we do at every single level. We don't invest time around actually who we do so much. We don't invest time in talking about it and putting a portal or a paper or anything of that sort to say what are the multiple interventions that we do and what level are like mandatory sessions for people. We never put that. We might have everything, but we never do that in the organizations. I think my first advice is you have to retain people. On day one, can you go to people and saying, hello, you've joined the organization. Today you are at next level. These are the multiple set of holistic development journey that we believe you to do in the next 2 to 3 years, because this will help you to go further in the organization. And when you go to the next level, these are the next level of program. Imagine the person say, wow, this organization on day one is talking about, oh, if I am today this, I should do these 5 programs because this will help me skill, which means today I'm a, big data person. Tomorrow I can become data analytics or, XYZ machine learning person. That's fantastic. People are looking for learning. You have to do that on day one of a person to show them a very clear picture what are the multiple learning spaces for them. The second piece that I have to, and why I also said this point is, you would also feel that, a genuine feedback from an L&D person is, oh, people don't come for the learning program. Now you haven't provided them visibility. Now you suddenly want them to come for a program. How do you expect that? So provide them visibility. And why? Because you have to also step back from being a push person to say that always you are pushing for people to come, from moving to a learning to a self-driven function. Because learning will only happen when I as an individual want it, but not only when organization want it. So we have to move it from a culture of saying, how can we become a learning culture where not only learning happens through a learning function, but learning through peers, learning through coaches, learning through mentors, reverse mentoring, and multiple places where learning becomes as a culture and a habit rather than just a training function, I would say. So I think that's where the actual retention starts to happen.
Sure, Megha. So thanks for sharing all the valuable insights. In the meantime, before I proceed with the next question, I would request our audience to put across their questions if you have any. Like I already said, you can start putting it across in the Q&A option of the Zoom control panel, and we will be more than happy to take them up here. So please don't wait, start putting it across now. So in the meantime, Megha, I'm sure you have already answered a lot about this question, but if there's anything that you would like to add, so the question is, what is the role of data analytics in making better talent decisions? If you'd like to summarize.
Yeah, I know I already spoke about it a lot, but I think it's very simple, think about people experience, candidate experience. So have your survey, how what's your candidate experience talking about, whether it's a new job, new hire at the junior most level to the senior most. So have your know what candidates are talking about you from a hiring standpoint. Identify what are your different channel effectiveness strategies, sourcing strategy, and I already spoke about multiple sourcing strategies. Think about turnover, demographics of the data that you're hiring, where are you hiring, what compensation are you hiring, if you hire at X compensation, what's the level of people retention vis-a-vis what when you hire at a low cost associate, what's the retention that the person has, how many days that the overall TA process itself take. Like a lot of organizations are very proactive, that the job requisition doesn't even come in and they started hiring because they believe in creating the funnel of the people. Vis-a-vis some organizations doesn't respond till the time the actual JR comes in with all the necessary approvals, and where that's when the day one really starts. So think about how can you be more proactive than being a reactive person as a function, because and that can, again, data can provide, because if you wait for everything and start, that means you're starting a day one is only starting when you even see a job requisition. Then obviously can you go back and say, how can I create, I know that I every year hire 1,000 Java people, can I create a pool of Java people at the start of the year? And whenever I need, I come quickly pick those 10 people because I know they've already cleared 2 rounds because I already proactively thought about it. So those 2 functional rounds are already done. Now only have to do 3 behavioral rounds and I'm done. So I think, that's what data can really provide. So put a lot of, think about how can data really leverage you in making the right set of decisions for the organization.
Sure. So I'll be moving to the last question. In the meantime, audience, dear attendees, if you have any questions, please start putting them across. So the last question from mine to you, Megha, is what are the effective strategies that HR leaders can adopt to acquire and retain the best talent in a hybrid setup?
So I think I spoke about it and touch about it, but I would say, see, culture is very important for me. In my mind, you can't hire a person in a remote setup, and tomorrow when you do, say, any Diwali celebration in the office, and do it physical. Because you're hiring talent hybrid, you're hiring talent, in a flexible manner, but you only celebrate people who are in office. So you have to be an inclusive culture. You have to think about these things, that how we'll operate, are we really including the people are in the remote. Like, you can't ask on a virtual setup for everybody beyond the camera, but how do you know what's going on in there behind the scene when they're not switching on the camera? If somebody who's not switching on the camera and not talking, you very happily ignore in a team meeting, or you ask that person, what's your point of view? Because you have to think that, is the person shut because they don't want to say, or is this because they didn't like this and they're not willing to really want to talk about it? Because it's very easy to ignore a person in a virtual setup as well. So be very, very inclusive and proactively put in a lot of a cultural values of how everything will work out when you are into a hybrid and a remote setup. So I think it's very important to pull that out, call it out, and create those behaviors for people to know. Don't assume that people will manage in a hybrid setup. We're not born like that. Our schooling system is still physical. Like my daughter, 1 year was completely remote and now completely it's physical. We are not, and I always question in my mind as an HR person, should I someday sit with the principal and say that maybe you're not setting the right culture for the students, because you're not teaching them how online look like. Probably one day in a week should be online for the students, because you're not making them learn. The world is not going to be physical completely. So you have to train the mindset right now, because these today's student will become leaders of saying, oh, I want everything physical, because they are very comfortable doing physical. They have not learned since the childhood how online looks like. How do I deal with my peer group online? They don't know. We're not teaching them. So don't assume is my word. Ensure that how will hybrid work out. call out behaviors as a people manager competencies, train people managers on how will you deal with 100 group of team meetings and yet get innovative ideas from them over a virtual setup. It's very easy to whiteboard in a room, but it's very difficult to do it in a virtual setup and still be engaging about it. So, don't leave for chance, but, make it as part of the design, I would say. Culture doesn't happen by, a fluke. It happens only when you design and really put in efforts towards that. The second, aspect, I would say is think about the entire employee value proposition, which is the EVP, which is from hire to retire. What is our employee getting, whether it's the candidate experience, whether it's the employer brand. When I join an organization, how does my career grow in this organization? And of course, culture are some of those, obviously, the fundamental pillars. How do your leadership interact? What's the communication style? Do you follow a very formal communication, or do you leave space for informal communication in the organization? How does bottom and up communication happen in the organization? What's the reward philosophy? Now, everything comes together, tie up to say that, oh, it's not just about the candidate experience, but it's a great experience to the tenure when I stay in the organization, even to an exit. People talk about, oh, this organization was great, but had a very bad exit. I had a very bad exit experience. That also spoils your brand. So, even think about how people are exiting. How can you provide the best exit to an individual where the person says, oh, it was a very smooth exit. I would definitely love to join back this organization.
Brilliant, brilliant, Megha. Thank you so much for sharing all the information here. I think our audience also have few questions for us. So I'll just take them up one by one now. So one of our attendee would like to know the strategies that they can use for startup or the small organizations. I'm so sorry, Megha. I think you're on mute.
Yeah. So I don't know whether they're talking about strategy in terms of the talent acquisition piece. But yeah, if you have to design your entire HR, strategy for a startup or a smallish organization, I would never suggest a small organization to put a vision for 5 years. Number one, you should not. You should put your strategy as short as 3 to 6 months, because it's a lot more fruitful in a smaller organization, because you would not hire in bulk 10,000 people or 1,000 people in a month. You're hiring 15 people or 100 people in a month. So, have your shorter goals a lot more important than a longer role when you design your, whether it's a traction strategy or a retention strategy, and have your milestones very, very clear, because in a smaller setup, reviews are also very frequent in comparison to a large setup. Reviews are frequent, numbers become a lot more important. So focus a lot on the number and the analytics, because in a smaller setup, you can't, wait for a quarter to showcase the numbers, because, it's a lot more frequent. So have your analytics in the right space in a smaller setup is what my first advice to you. The second piece of advice that I have to give in a smaller setup, see, people are very close knitted, very, very close knitted to each other, and people might also be double hatting in a, smaller setup or a startup kind of an experience. So ensure that you identify what's the core value of this organization, and as you become larger in that setup, don't lose that, because the moment you become double, from 100 you become 200 people, from 50 you become 75 people, you are spreading your arms, but you're hiring multiple people from outside. So it's the right time to invest and know who you are and you want to become, and identify those behaviors that you want the larger setup to also follow. So ensure that you do that, because again, as I always say, things doesn't happen by design. You have to inculcate those behaviors and the right set of values that people should also take care of when you become from 100 to 500 size organization.
Sure. I hope that answers the question. So our next attendee would like to know, what are the new recruitment trends that we are looking at in 2023?
Well, I would say we are in a world of imagination. Whatever, I remember there's some Hindi movie of Bobby Deol. I can't remember the name. He was wearing an iPod into a generation where the headsets without earphones were never even designed. And imagine now it's so common. We all wear AirPods and multiple other things. We can't imagine our world without wireless. So I think today's the world of imagination. You can imagine, and it would be find in a click of a button. Now, multiple products being tested where, and I don't know if you've seen the video, I can always share to the readers around uh, a video on, an interview happening in the car, and the machine in the car is really interviewing the candidate, understanding the behavior while the person is driving. Now, the idea obviously is to see how can you multitask and, still have your brain very, very active while you're driving. So, technology is limitless today, and I think that is going to fundamentally change in 2023 as well, which means recruitment will be driven a lot more with technology than what it is today. Now, whether it's through how you source the candidate, because technology will provide you a lot of platform around that, to multiple aspects on, how do you screen the candidates. So sourcing is one, second is screening, which means through AI, through multiple other tools, you will start getting a lot of screening, also through multiple tools, and maybe your Naukris and IIMs and other sources will start providing that, by the way, as a service. So, that will fundamentally change in 2023. Uh, the third aspect, I believe, which we've not touched on this, is, we today talk a lot around hiring on the roles. I think the future is also a lot on the contract. I get into a lot of panel, and people say that India has fundamentally not moved on so much on the contractual role. I believe 2023 is going to be different, where cost becomes a lot more important to the organization. Outsourcing will also become very, very phenomenal, or contracting, we so called. I think that will also be a game changer in a market like India, where you outsource and, or hire or through a contract, and hire for 2 years, and that will actually become a primary talent acquisition strategy in 2023. The last piece, if I have to call out an important thing in 2023, which will be a lot more relevant because of the recession that's going to come up, organizations will a lot more hire people who are very fungible. And I spoke that in the start. Just remember, the war of the talent is still going to go while recession is on, which means a lot of hiring will not happen because you're doing the same job for 10 years, but rather it will happen because you're ready to take risk, and you're ready to, move beyond what you just know. So I think skill, behavioral aspect will be more important than the functional aspect.
All right. Thanks for answering that, Megha. So our next question is, one of our attendee would like to know, why do organizations emphasize diversity and inclusion? How does it affect core tech roles?
Yeah. So I think I'll not get into what are the benefits, because I think we are in a world where we know that if you don't hire a diverse and inclusive workforce, you are not going to be an organization who can really think about, the future. And why I'm saying it, there are multiple studies, and you can actually go and read about it, that, how diversity helps organization think differently, how diversity really impacts the productivity and the revenue of the organization, because the more the diverse workforce you have, more different thought process comes in, and, with different thought process only, you can obviously start thinking differently if you have to get your business to the next level. So I think that's the value, and that's what organization relies today, and that's why there's so much of focus when it comes to diversity inclusion, from an environment standpoint.
Sure. I hope that answers the question. And the last question we have for today is, Megha, what is the best way to build culture and values and behaviors in a fast scaling environment?
See, it's a tough one, because cultures don't create it in a day. You know, so what is culture? Okay, let's take a step back. See, culture to my mind is what you experience on a day to day when you go to an office, or if I today do this team call. What is the underlying sentiment that you have on every single conversation, or a comment that comes in, or if you're in a review, how do people react to any positive or negative behavior? These are nothing but the fabric of the organization, if I have to say. Now, the fabric of the organization doesn't create it in a day. It takes a much longer time to create that. Now, there's no easy way. Trust me, the only way that I know is to get to the weed of the things, which means, do you know what people are even feeling on the culture. Culture is not that you put on a wall and say we are very innovative and we are very collaborative and we are very open as an organization. It never happens like that. It happens when you identify what does collaboration mean for you from a junior most associate, not just from a senior most associate, but to the junior most associate. What does collaboration mean? How do you collaborate within the organization? Why collaboration is very important for you as an organization? If I don't collaborate, what happens? You have to reward as well for a behavior that you're asking people to do. So you have to create everything in and around for creating a behavior in the organization, and for every single behavior that you define, you have to do that. uh, so I think the easiest way is know what your people are saying. If this culture is working, if your current culture is working or not working, or if you don't have a culture, then identify what people want to see as an organization culture, and then break it up into action plans. Break it up in saying, if we have to become innovative, what does it mean to the groundest level? That means you have to do 10 things to be known as an innovative organization. So identify, break it up into a smaller steps, and then work on it. And the third last thing that I always tell, it's not just a leadership agenda to build a culture. Culture is driven the best when, a lot of these things driven are at the junior most associate as well. So these action plans or interventions should not just have senior leadership team, but a lot of people from the ground and the middle management for them to drive. Because it happens two things: they know actual ground challenges, you don't know. You are in the leadership team, you don't know what actually happens to the ground level of associate. So you have to involve them to know what are the challenges. You have to involve them for even solution aspect, which A, helps you in knowing the ground reality, and B, they become the advocate as well for you. So you have to be very, very smart in some of the things as well. So don't just put as a leadership agenda to drive, but also have involve a lot of junior people to help you drive that, help understand what the ground realities are, and build interventions accordingly.
Sure. Thanks, Megha. So I think, dear attendees, with this, we are now coming to end of the discussion. But if there are any questions pending, don't worry that we couldn't bring it up here. We will definitely get back to you on your questions. Also, you can post your questions on the Great Tribe community, which is of Great HR. So basically, Great Tribe is a Q&A forum where a lot of knowledge sharing happens among the HR peers. So please be part of this Great Tribe and gain the knowledge and share the knowledge here. So you can also see there is a link given for you on the screen there. You can sign up to this Great Tribe community. It is completely free of cost, and be a part of this wonderful community. So I think on this note, I would like to thank Ms. Megha for such an insightful and knowledgeable session. I'm certain that our audience has gathered a lot of information and details on this buzzing topic. In fact, you have certainly given us a lot of great insights on talent strategies for the future workforce. So thanks again, Megha. And also, dear attendees, thank you for joining in us today and for making these sessions successful. If you have any more questions, you can always write back to us on the given mail ID, that is rakigautam@greatofgreative.com. And we will surely get back to you with the response. So we will see you again in the next at another interesting topic of discussion. Till then, stay safe, take care, have a great time. Thank you.